Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is a crazy and extremely creepy camping encounter with a dad and his son. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Please do let me know down below in the comments. Of course, please do like and share. And without further ado, let's get into tonight's story, entitled Screams in the Night. Let's get straight into that. My dad and I used to go hunting together when I was a teenager. He's your quintessential outdoors man, tall, thick around the middle, a big beard, a collection of flannel. My dad's told me all kinds of stories about being out in the wilderness, stories about bears, mountain lions, moose, elk, badgers and wolverines, stories about almost starving, getting caught in blizzards. My dad's even fought a few coyotes while hunting whitetail. My dad was fearless in my eyes for so many years, and then that changed. We were camping at the base of a rocky face in our favourite hunting area. The year prior was the first time I'd made my first kill. I was so excited for the next day. We got up early, before the sun, and head out to the meadow for a few miles west. There was a good population of whitetail in this area. That night, he was telling me about this time in Alaska, where he's hunting Kodiak bears. Mid-story, we heard a shrill screech coming from down the ridge, north of our location. He stopped and smiled, told me it was an elk. It freaked me out, but his calm attitude chilled me out. We heard it a few more times, and it seemed to be fading farther and farther away into the night. The sky was clear that night. It was a cool night. When we settled in the tent for shut-eye, he told me that tomorrow we would be having a great day. My dad loves to sing or hum to himself to sleep, so I gradually fell asleep to him whistling out some Bob Dylan. I remember waking up to him shaking my shoulders. "Dylan, Dylan," it's not my name. "Dylan, we need to go. Come on, get up, son, let's go." The tent was dark. My dad was dressed. I mistook his urgency as being upset. Sorry, Pop. Must have overslept. Is the sun up?" He shook his head. "No, son. We're packing out. You need to get up now." I heard it then, like a banshee wailing coming from the rock face above us. It was so loud. 5-second intervals of on and off absolute screaming. I mean, open mouth. Ah! Goosebumps started to protrude on my arms. The hairs on the back of my neck were, of course, standing straight. "Dad, what's that? A fox?" He was crudely stuffing articles of clothing and trinkets into his pack. "No, son. Up now. Let's go." I started to pack up with my haste. My dad's tone demanded no slacking right now. Everything seemed like a blur at that moment. The screaming above us was definitely distracted, adding in the fact that my eyes were blurry from sleep. I was groggy and getting more and more fearful about my dad's tone and body language. "Dad, you have to tell me what's going on." He stopped, throwing his pack on the tent floor. He turned to me, bending slightly and hushing his tone. "Dylan, I've never heard that sound, or whatever is making that sound, in my life. Earlier it was screaming for help. Before that, it started to say odd words with no connection between one another. It was as if it was saying words that it must not be human, but I thought, do you think they need our help?" He looked up in the direction of the rock face. "I'm not sure it's a him or a her, son. Get your things together and load your weapon." My dad is one of the most stringent gun owners I know. Him asking me to load my weapon in our small tent was not only against his usually gun safety creed, but it heightened my fear level. "Do you think we'll need our guns, Dad? It might just be someone having a bad mushroom trip, you know?" He shot me a look that said, "This isn't a joke. Dylan, let's go. The tent needs to come down. When we stepped outside, the screams stopped abruptly. Like mid-scream, they noticed us. I glanced quickly up. No lights from the top of the rock. It was at least 80 feet high at the top, and to the best of my knowledge, pointed hard to stand on. We worked quick taking the tent down. In a matter of minutes, we were ready to pack out with everything on our backs. The screaming started again, but different this time, like a low whooping, almost like the starting sound you hear when the ambulance siren calls. We started downhill, the sound trailing behind us. My dad had a pistol holstered to his waist, his rifle in hand. Dylan, I'm going to fire a few shots. We'll wait for a response. If there's no response, we'll stay the course. And with that, he raised his gun, firing 2 shots spaced apart. We waited in silence. After the second echo died, nothing. He nodded, and we pressed on. About half hour later, we exited the forest canopy and began walking across the meadow we'd been glazing the following morning. Halfway across, the screams returned. They were at the edge of the forest, not whooping this time, but like high-pitched screams. My dad raised his hand for me to stop. He sat and listened. I was holding my breath. Those aren't elk. Stick close, son. My dad started walking at a pace that even for me was hard to maintain. He was taking long strides across the field, every few minutes stopping suddenly to listen. The screams were definitely following us. How far it was from us, I cannot tell you. If you asked me for a rough estimate, I'd say a quarter of a mile behind. We reached the tree line on the other side, which then cascaded gradually downhill to a flat walk through the woods, onto a trail, crossed a little bridge over a stream, and down the trail a while where the cars were parked. When we arrived, we were the only car there. It wasn't really a parking lot, just a place for hunters decided was a good place to congregate. Keep up with me now, son. I'm not slowing down till we get to the truck. With that statement, my dad basically began jogging. My pack was heavy on my back, the straps digging into my shoulders. If it was heavy for me though, my dad's pack was probably triple my weight. The screams started getting closer. When we were traversing downhill, the lights from my lantern kept our path illuminated. I was running on pure adrenaline and fear. My goosebumps hadn't gone away yet. Every time I heard the shrill call of the screamer, I felt that tickle of pure terror in my toes. Like waves of fear, similar to being afraid of heights. My hands were sweating on the lantern handle. I felt ill. When we reached the stream bridge, my dad stopped. He was panting hard. Not as hard as me. I was a stocky kid, not in the best shape at the time. It had been about 5 minutes of no screams. He looked at me. His eyes were wide as ever. Dylan, we need to get to the truck. I need you to go ahead of me now. I don't feel comfortable having you behind me. I couldn't say I disagreed. I felt a lot safer having my dad watching me than trying to keep up with his lightning pace. I started going, trying to copy his pace, but he stopped me. No, son. Go at your own pace. We're close. Like clockwork, we finished talking, and from the top of the hill, very close, we hear a screaming. This time, it lasted long. A long time, like 10 seconds maybe. 10 long seconds. Dylan, move! The last mile is likely an empty memory. I was walking so fast, his eyes locked on the ground, trying to keep from falling or tripping. I swear I could feel my dad's breath on the back of my neck. I was crying at this point, I admit it. The screaming sounded even worse than before, like completely frantic, like whatever was making the sound was desperate to reach us. The faster I moved, the closer we got, the closer it got. I heard the distant sound of an 18-wheeler on the freeway, and I knew we were close. There was a clearing, and I saw the reflection of our tail lights in the electric lamp lights. My dad moved past me, straight away, practically sprinting to the passenger side door. He had it open before I even reached the car, and I basically dove straight in, his palm shoving my butt in, slamming the door. He came around to his side, opening his door and slamming it shut. His eyes were in the ignition, and the car moved before the lights were even on. As we made our U-turn out of there, we both looked to see the edge of the forest. We never saw what it was, but over the roar of the truck engine we could still hear it shrieking, and I'll never forget that last time I heard it. Almost like a cackle, a laugh, a frantic manic laugh, so loud it was the last time as well, like the last of its energy on one last scream. As we drove farther and farther away, my senses came back to earth, and I realised that I was crying hysterically. I looked at my dad, who was white-knuckling the steering wheel, gazing head forward at the road. We stopped at a gas station a few miles down. He leaned over and embraced me. I didn't realise how truly afraid I was until it all came to that last point, running to the truck. We stayed like that for a long time. He was holding my head in his hands, just telling me, it's okay, son. Yes, I was about 16, crying into my father's arms, but I felt it was warranted. My dad went inside to pay the gas man a little while later. The clock read 2:14 AM. The whole hike back to the truck had probably taken an hour and a half tops. We basically ran the most way back. My dad and I never told my mother or sister about what happened. It kind of stayed between us two. I tried to talk to him about it a few times, but he told me what happened. My dad started developing mild insomnia in the years following. The few times we talked about it, he mentioned having nightmares. I've had a few of my own, but they passed in time. It's been about 20 years since that night. My dad and I haven't gone hunting since. Maybe someday we will. Maybe we'll go to the same spot, but probably not. Wow, hope you guys enjoyed that story. I personally feel that sounds something along the lines of a Sasquatch or Bigfoot, if you want to call it that. Please do let me know what you think down below, and of course please do like and share. If you haven't subscribed to DMT, please smash that subscribe button. Your support is more than welcome, and we really do appreciate it. Hope you guys have had a lovely week and are looking forward to an even better weekend. Happy Thanksgiving to all of my USA family and friends. And remember guys, if you're going camping this weekend, above all, remember, be safe, not sorry.